19. Kind of a recap, just to remember where we're at. We're to the point to where Elijah, over God, has just come out on top from the showdown on Mount Carmel, where God brought fire down on the altar that was covered in drinking water, and the god Baal could not do that. We've got Elijah returns to Jezreel. Elijah returns to Jezreel before the king. He gets there before the king. I don't remember why he got there before the king, but Elijah gets back, and all of a sudden the queen sends a messenger to him to say that she's still out to have him killed. And so Elijah is back on the run. He flees to Mount Sinai, finds a cave, settles in for the night. God comes to him in the cave and asks Elijah what he is doing. Elijah responds in verse 10. Interesting. In verse 10, Elijah responds and says, I have been very zealous for the Lord God of hosts. For the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they seek to take my life. So he's fled. He's in a cave all by himself. You can imagine the loneliness that he feels. He's been really by himself for the most part for 3 or 4 years. He's had somebody there with him occasionally, but it's not family. It's not people that he grew up with or was acquainted with before. Can you imagine all the feelings that he had? He's got to go through this again. He's got to go be in hiding. He doesn't know how long it's going to be. So he's very lonely. We know before, we saw in one of our previous lessons, he prayed for God to go ahead and take his life because he's tired of his hiding, he's tired of running, and he's ready for it to be over. Now we get to last week's passage, 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 11 through 22. Then he said, Go out and stand on the mountain before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore into the mountains, and broke the rocks in pieces before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. So it was, when Elijah heard it, that he wrapped his face in his mantle and went out and stood in the entrance of the cave. Suddenly a voice came to him, and he said, What are you doing here, Elijah? And Elijah replied, and this should sound familiar, I have been very zealous for the Lord, God of hosts, because the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, torn down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I alone am left, and they seek to take my life. And then the Lord said to him, Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. And when you arrive, anoint Hazael as king over Syria. Also you shall anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, as king over Israel. And Elisha, the son of Shaphat, of Abel Meholah, you shall anoint as prophet in your place. It shall be that whoever escapes the sword of Hazael, Jehu will kill. Whoever escapes the sword of Jehu, Elijah will kill. Yet I have reserved 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. So he departed from there and found Elijah, the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him, and he was with the 12. Then Elisha passed by him and threw his mantle on him. And he left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, Please let me kiss my father and mother, and then I will follow you. And he said to him, Go back again, for what have I done to you? So Elisha returned from him, and took a yoke of oxen and slaughtered them, and boiled their flesh, using oxen's equipment, and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he arose and followed Elijah, and became his servant. So Elijah had made it to Mount Sinai after 40 days of travel. So he's again on the run, been over on the road for 40 days. He finally gets to a cave where he can rest his head. It appears that he gets a night's sleep before the Lord comes to him again, asking Elijah to go out, stand on top of the mountain. The first thing that happens is a strong wind comes by. and then an earthquake, and then a fire, and all of those things led up to the Lord speaking to Elijah. All of those things, except the Lord was not in those things, but then it was followed by this still small voice. I think sometimes for us as Christians, we tend to think that we see God himself in everything in nature. We think that God is in the sky, he's in the beauty of the sky, he's in the sunset, all these different things. But the truth is God made everything for us to enjoy. That doesn't mean he's in everything. I think that's the point that it's making here. God wasn't the one that was in the wind. He wasn't in the earthquake. Those were natural things that happened. God created them. But it doesn't mean that everything that we see is something where he's talking to us at that moment. Any thoughts on that? I thought that was kind of a different passage, kind of hard to understand. Why it says that the wind came and God was in the wind, the earthquake came and God was in that. Does anybody have any thoughts on what else that passage could be meaning or alluding to?
God doesn't always show us in the powerful ways.
God shows himself. It's not always in powerful ways that we see sometimes in the Bible.
And he got attention.
And so the book makes the point as well. He got Elijah's attention. It was one way that he did get Elijah to pay attention. Elijah, probably with the wind, was thinking it was God. And so he's looking for God, and God's not there. So all these things lead Elijah to look for the Lord. Anybody have any other thoughts on that?
We get in a tizzy sometimes about things, creating all of that for ourselves. The tension, the stress, all those things that cause us not to see God. And at times, we have to be quiet. And there's no other, at the end, you've got to be quiet. Finally, you have to be quiet. And many times, that is when God shows himself.
You still don't know that I'm God?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got Elijah. He's standing on a mountain. After this wind, this earthquake, fire, God asked him the same question that he asked him, I think it was 40 days ago, if I remember the time frame correctly. And what's Elijah's answer? Verse 14. The exact same thing he told God before. Almost word for word. He's basically saying, I'm all by myself. And there's no one else left in Israel who wants to do good. He's kind of having a pity party. Everybody else has abandoned him. They turned their back on him. They turned their back on God. They burned down the altars of God. So Elijah is basically saying, what shall I do? I'm all by myself. So God's response initially is, get up, it's time to go. Quit sulking. Let's go. You're going to travel back. Go appoint Hazael as king. Appoint Nimshi as king over Israel. God also tells Elijah that he's not alone because he tells him to do what? What's the next thing that God tells him to do? Go appoint Elisha as your successor. Your job's not done. You got to train somebody else behind you to be your successor. So Elijah seemed to be at this low point. He'd been on the run for nearly 4 years, hiding, keep his life. He'd already tried to give up once. We talked about he's asking for God to take his life, but God didn't oblige. So we see God still has plans for Elijah. I think we can relate to that. Sometimes we get beat down. We feel like we're all alone. We kind of ask God to pull us out of it right away. And we have our thoughts on what it is that God should do to get us out of this mess that we're in, or this trial or struggle that we're in. But we don't necessarily ask God to show us what his plan is for our life. We just give up because we don't know what he's got in our path or who he's got in our path. Actually, I'll talk more about that tonight. Talk about the lesson tonight. I won't go too much in detail there. Moving on to next week's, or this week's lesson. We'll look at 1 Kings chapter 21. The book skips chapter 20. So 1 Kings chapter 21. verses 1 through 16. And it came to pass after these things that Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard which was in Jezreel, next to the palace of Ahab, king of Samaria. So Ahab spoke to Naboth, saying, Give me your vineyard, that I may have it for a vegetable garden, because it is near next to my house, and for it I will give you a vineyard better than it. Or if it seems good to you, I will give you its worth in money. But Naboth said to Ahab, The Lord forbid that I should give the inheritance of my fathers to you. So Ahab went to his house, sullen and displeased, because of the word which Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken to him. For he had said, I will not give you the inheritance of my father. And he lay down on his bed, and turned away his face, and would eat no food. But Jezebel his wife came to him, and said to him, Why is your spirit so sullen that you eat no food? He said to her, Because I spoke to Naboth the Jezreelite, and said to him, Give me your vineyard for money, or else, if it pleases you, I will give you another vineyard for it. And he answered, I will not give you my vineyard. Then Jezebel his wife said to him, You now exercise authority over Israel. Arise, eat food, and let your heart be cheerful. I will give you the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. And she wrote letters in Ahab's name, sealed them with his seal, and sent letters to the elders and the nobles who were dwelling in the city with Naboth. She wrote in the letter, saying, Proclaim a fast, and seek Naboth with high honor among the people. And seek 2 men, scoundrels, before him, to bear witness against him, saying, You have blasphemed God and the king. And then take him out and stone him, that he may die. So the men of his city, the elders and nobles who were inhabitants of his city, did as Jezebel had sent to them, as it is written in the letters which she had sent to them. They proclaimed a fast and seated Naboth with high honor among the people. And 2 men, scoundrels, came in and sat before him. And the scoundrels witnessed against him, against Naboth in the presence of the people, saying, Naboth has blasphemed God and the king. Then they took him outside the city and stoned him with stones so that he died. Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth has been stoned and is dead. And it came to pass, when Jezebel heard that Naboth had been stoned and was dead, that Jezebel said to Ahab, Arise, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give you for money. For Naboth is not alive, but dead. So it was, when Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, Ahab got up and went down to take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. So we learn a little bit more in this passage about Ahab in its interaction. The book has a section titled Ahab's Greed. I don't fully agree with that. I think the interaction that we see between Ahab and Naboth doesn't appear that Ahab is aggressive with him. To me, it's more like somebody that's looking for real estate. It's basically just trying to make a deal. He comes to him, offering him money, offering him a trade, whatever it is that he will do. He doesn't come as the king. He doesn't come forcefully saying, I'm going to take your land, or else. So it appears, in this account at least, there are some good qualities in Ahab's character. He's not really forceful. What is Naboth's response? He doesn't just say, you can't have it, but what does he say?
My family's inheritance.
My family's inheritance.
His inheritance, yes.
He says, the Lord forbid it. The Lord forbid that I should give you the inheritance. So Naboth isn't necessarily even saying, I don't want to give it to you. He's saying, the Lord forbid me to give you this. And that comes from the Old Testament. It comes from law. Leviticus chapter 25, verse 23, talks about the land being God's, and so it cannot be sold permanently. If you were to sell it, they were supposed to get it back and use it eventually. And then also in Numbers 36, verse 7, it says that no inheritance shall pass from one tribe to another. So Naboth's response isn't necessarily his own thoughts or feelings. He may have wanted the money, he may have wanted a bigger vineyard, but he knew that under the law, he couldn't do that. So Ahab is crushed. He's had his eye on this vineyard evidently for a long time. And finally goes and makes a move to try to get it, and gets denied. So he goes back into his house and he sulks, grieves, refuses to eat, which is something that was more common, I guess, back then than it is now. Yeah, pouts. We pout now. We don't refuse to eat. Right? We actually eat more instead of refusing to eat. So he refuses to eat. His wife comes in. So enter the lovely Jezebel, queen to Ahab, former princess of Sidon, daughter of Ethbal. She's a full, very powerful woman. So she comes in. She sees her husband upset, and they ask him what has happened. So Jezebel basically says, if you don't do it, if you're not going to take it, if you're not going to do it, I'll do it. Guys, has your wife ever said that to you? Have you ever heard that? If you're not going to do it, I'll just go do it. That runs in the shook blood. And Nana was going to go hang her wreaths up on her windows on her ladder outside this year for Christmas. And we had to say, no, you need to do that. So Jezebel comes in. Sorry, I'm not comparing you to Jezebel, by the way. Jezebel comes in and she comes up with this elaborate plan. She thinks out what the plan could be. She has someone else basically hire a hitman, if you will, to go accuse Nabal of blasphemy. So she doesn't go directly call the hitman. She doesn't find somebody herself. She goes through somebody so that it can't be traced back to her, so it can't be traced back to the king. The king had this done. So she comes up with this plan. She has these men go accuse Nabal of blasphemy, basically. So she knows the law, obviously. If you look in Deuteronomy chapter 17, verses 2 through 7. If a man or woman living among you in one of the towns of the Lord gives you, in one of the towns the Lord gives you, is found doing evil in the eyes of the Lord your God, in violation of his covenant, and contrary to my command, has worshipped other gods, bowing down to them, or the sun, or the moon, or the stars of the sky, and this has been brought to your attention, then you must investigate it thoroughly. If it is true and has been proved that this detestable thing has been done in Israel, take the man or woman who has done this evil deed to your city gate and stone that person to death. On the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, a man shall be put to death, but no one shall be put to death on the testimony of only one witness. So Jezebel in this plan obviously knows a little bit about the law of the Israelites. She knows a little bit about what she can do to come up with this plan. So she makes sure that when she says, have somebody accuse him, she doesn't just say, go get somebody off the street. She says, get 2 people. Because she knows the law says that on a witness of 2 or more people, that they can stone somebody to death. So Jezebel, did I get to verse 7? Actually, so verse 7 says, the hands of the witness must be the first, putting him to death. And then the hands of all the people. You must purge the evil among you. And so Jezebel comes up with this plan where these 2 men are the first ones to throw the stone, even though she's the one really that initiated all of it. So she's very sneaky. And so if we look at our lives today, that's how Satan is. He's very sneaky. He comes into our lives. He knows what God's laws are. So he knows how to use God's laws against us. He knows how to use that against our weaknesses because he knows what our weaknesses are. And he knows the things that he can tempt us with. This story kind of reminds me of David and Bathsheba. David himself was a faithful man of God, but he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And he saw something that he shouldn't have seen. But Satan used that one little temptation to put David through this huge ordeal that probably forever changed his life and led to one sin after the other. Sin itself often starts with one small temptation. Look at James chapter 1, verses 13 through 15. When tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when, by his own evil desire, he is dragged away and enticed. Then after evil desire is conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, gives birth to death. So as Christians, we have to always be on guard for these temptations. It's typically how we handle that first temptation. When that first evil desire comes up, determines what the rest of our day, week, or lives is going to be like. In the case of David, all he had to do was turn his head. If David would have just turned his head in that one moment, in that split second, if he would have made the right decision, he would have kept himself from adultery, from deceit, from ultimately murder, murdering her husband. But he didn't do that. He made one bad decision to give in to sin. And that sin grew and grew within him and became something bigger and bigger than he ever thought it would be. For Ahab, who it appears actually had a good conscience, at least at the beginning of this account, he made the right decision to start with. He went and he chose not to exercise his authority as king. He chose to make an offer. When it was denied, he didn't abuse his authority and say, no, you're going to do it anyway. Now, he went back and cried and whined and was mad about it, but he didn't exercise authority as king. And then his wife comes in and presses him. When she steps in and says, I'll take care of it, that's kind of the second temptation that he has. And in that case, he doesn't step up and say, no, it's okay. That's where he lets sin come in. So she goes and takes care of it. And in the end, Ahab went and took the vineyard anyway. I think Satan does that to us as well in our lives. We turn away from sin, but he persists. He tries to find different angles to come in and press where he knows that we have weaknesses, where he knows that we are vulnerable to sin. Sometimes he'll use our friends, sometimes he'll use our family members, whether they're believers or not. In the case of Ahab, it was his wife. Often it was his wife who tempted him. But Satan does the same to us. He uses friends, he uses family members. I think it's important for us not only to stand strong when we're being tempted, but also to be on guard and to understand what temptations are for our family, for our friends, and those around us. We have to know what their temptations are, what their weaknesses are. And to do that, you have to have those conversations that are difficult to have. So I want to close again in James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. Consider it pure joy, my brothers, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Perseverance must finish its work in you, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. You might have more thoughts before we close. Discussion on this. Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning, Lord, we thank you so much for those that are around us. We thank you for this congregation. We thank you for those that are visiting. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity that we can come together freely and learn more about you, learn from your word, and learn from one another. God, we thank you for your word. We thank you for the examples that we can see, Lord, of people that lived a couple thousand years ago, 3,000 years ago, several thousand years ago, Lord. We can see your people from the beginning of time until Jesus, God. And thank you so much for that. I pray that we will take what we learn from your word, God, that we will apply it to our lives, and that it will make us a better follower of you, a better follower of Christ. God, we thank you so much for Jesus and the sacrifice that you made when you came to this earth. I pray that we never take that for